Hey folks, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Casper. I am the AI engineering team lead in Diagrid, and I'll today take you through how to make your AI agent, production smart by enriching the context before we call the LLM for questions. Today we'll build a expert agent. It'll base off of the example in the Dapr Agents, and it'll be built on top of the hooking system that we've implemented lately. I will first dump a couple of links in the chat so you can tag along if you want to build. The first link is the link to the actual code example, and you'll get that here. Then the second link will be a link where you can run this through the Dapr University track as an interactive UI where you can run the agent and you can do it all without having anything locally. So it's a pretty cool way to do it. You get a little badge. It's very nice. I ran it earlier today. And I'll be using Diagrid Catalyst to showcase the insights of the agent and the execution. And you can find more details about that here. And lastly, I'll be using Chainlit and Tavily to run this demo. And you can find a little bit more information here. Tavily is it's a web tool to hook to your agent, so your agent will have the ability to search the internet. Pretty neat, and has a free tier that gives you 1,000 free requests per month. I have not been able to use it up myself while demoing, testing, and stuff like that, so should be fairly adequate to get you going there. So with that out of the way, I want to talk a little bit and shortly about the hooks. I will only really be sharing my code editor. VS Code had a nice update where you can now run a browser inside, so I'll be using that instead of swapping back and forth. I'll be sharing that, but I'll be talking over that, and then we'll be doing some live action and seeing some code and stepping through it and so on and so forth. Now, about the hooks. So when you look at an agent, what does it do? It quote unquote thinks, then it does some action. It'll be calling a tool or something like that, and then that loop repeats. It's basically what it does over and over and over. And with hooks, we generally have 4 moments where we can interchange that, or we can step in and do something about that. The first moment is before we call the LLM, we can hook into that and enrich the context, or we can create a policy that says, you can't ask about these specific things or whatever that might be. That's the hook we're going to use today. We can do a post hook where if we want to have a specific type of output, if we want to have a specific type of reaction pattern when it's a tool call, or if it's not a tool call, we can do that. Then we can do it before we call a tool. We will be showcasing this next week on the Dapr 118 celebration, where we will be showcasing human in the loop before a tool call. And then we can do it after a tool call, where we might want to filter out. Let's imagine that we are, querying some patient records, and before we return them, we want to mask some PII. That's something we could do there. Horrible example, because we would be loading that up to an LLM, but if it was a local model, that would probably be feasible. In any case, there is 4 different ways that we can use the hooks. And I'm going to showcase one of them today. What is neat about this in Dapr Agents context is that the Dapr Agents is durable by nature, and these hooks are sort of where we sort of sidestep on a little bit of that part. Like, the agent will continue to be durable, but a lot of these hooks are not really intended to be necessarily replay safe. For example, a human in the loop, you would probably want a human to reapprove it if you rerun it over and over and over again. The same goes with the one we're showcasing today, the prompt context enrichment. I don't want to know what happened 4 days ago. If I run it today, I want to know what happens today. So that's something to be mindful of here. And I guess you could say that today's demo is a little bit of a RAG example, right? We retrieve, and then we augment, and then we generate some stuff with the LLM. Cool. So like I said, I will be running up against Catalyst, and the first thing I'll do, I did already log in, but I'll do it again. I'll run the Diagrid login command, and I'll say, yes, thank you. That ran in my regular browser. Then I will create my agent project. So this runs the command Diagrid project create expert agent, and I'll enable the agent infrastructure. And then I already did so let me remove that so I can do it again with you guys. So I'll specifically be running on Python 3.13. So I'll do a virtual environment with UV, and then I'll source it and sync the packages. I will then override, because I promised, at least on LinkedIn, that I had a little teaser for later. So just in case I forget that, I have now already done it. So this teaser will come at the end when I'm done going through this demo, which will make this demo even more nice at the end of it. Let's see. Okay, so we can now go into Catalyst, and then let me remove this a little bit. This is Catalyst. It's showing a little bit funky because it is within VS Code, and it's also zoomed so that it's actually viewable on the stream. But this is the project we created. So jumping into that, we have the dashboard, and then I have the various different application IDs I can use, MCP servers, components, policies, agents, workflows, and so on. Right now, there is nothing. So it's just an empty project. This is what we're going to be working up against and with. Cool. Then the next step is that we need to create, and I'm using an environment file. I'm not going to show you the actual environment file because it holds the keys, but I'll be using my OpenAI API key and my Tavily API key. So you'll need one of these if you're tagging along with it. And then the next step will be to go into the agent. You will find the link to the example code in GitHub in the chat as well. Alrighty, so what do we have here? The first step is a set of exports or imports, I'm sorry. And this is just to make sure that everything runs and we have everything going on. Then we have a set of instructions. These are the instructions that we, together with the name, role, goal, bind together into the system prompt, and then wrap around the actual question that we're going to start asking this agent when we start running it. In this example, we're running it with Chainlit, so we wrap our agent creation in a function that we can then utilize. And this agent is a durable agent. We've called it expert agent. It has a role to assist with live web context and then answer questions with fresh understanding. The instructions is just based off of further up. We're using a smaller GPT-4o mini with the native OpenAI chat client. We've set a memory store which points to the agent's memory. I'll jump into those in a second, don't worry. We have the state of the agent's execution referencing to the workflow state store. We have the registry, so we can register the agent if it was in a team. And then we have the execution config. The max iterations just says that it's allowed to run the loop one time. And then we have the exciting part. This is the hook. And this is what we're going to use and fiddle with today. This one I'm going to comment out because then we can see what exactly does it mean when there is no hook and we ask an expert agent. I said I would come back to the state stores. So we have the agent's memory, the agent's workflow store, and the registry. And these are just resource definitions in standard Dapr setup where we refer to them as is. You'll also find these in the example repo linked in the chat. Apart from that, in order to run it up against Catalyst, we have a YAML file that specifies want the logs to go out in the console. The resources that we want to work with is in the resource folder. We do not want to have our application health check. We want to use info as the log level. The app ID we want to set is expert agent, and the path for that agent is present directory. The app port is needed but irrelevant for us. In this example, we are running HTTP, and the command to start up when we use the CLI, the Diagrid CLI, will be to run the application with Chainlit. Good. Let's look at that. I've added a Chainlit MD. Otherwise, you'll just get a standard Chainlit file. But this is just to have like a little bit of customization for this specific example. And then we have the application with Chainlit. This is just very much Chainlit specific. We'll load the environment exports from the environment file, and then we'll set some global or not global, but we will set some variables that we're going to need and use throughout. Then we have a helper function to get the agent and runner. Then we have a helper function to extract the content from the workflow. And now comes the Chainlit specific. So we have the Chainlit on start. What we will do is we will get the agent and runner that will go in and create the agent and runner. If there is no agent, then it'll go and build it. And the build agent is just returning the durable agent that we walked through before. And then it'll set the runner and the workflow runner and return it. So now that we have that, we can then start the user's session within Chainlit context, and then we're just sending a custom message to wait for a user input. Then every time we have a message sent through Chainlit, this function triggers the Chainlit on message. Then we will get the agent and runner. We already created them in the on start, but this time we want them returned so we can interact with them and work with them. We'll get or set the instance ID. If it is none, we'll set it, and then we will execute the agent through the runner with the content, so the prompt that we're asking it, and then we'll await. And I'll check if there's any questions. Just throw them in the chat, and I'll try to answer along the way. I am specifically not going to walk through the hooks yet, because as I said initially, we're going to run it without the hooks, so you get an idea about how does that look like. All right, so we've gone over the agent setup without the hooks. We've initialized a project in Catalyst. We logged in before we initialized it. So now is the time to actually try to run it. So the command for that is diagrid run, and we'll point to the file, the YAML file, and I'll just auto approve all of the questions along the way. This will then communicate up with Catalyst. Catalyst is just remotely running my Dapr sidecar, so they will host all of these things for us. Which makes my burden as a developer a lot less. I don't currently have any Dockerized setup running. I don't have Dapr running locally or anything like that, but I can still use all of the constructs from Dapr. It's pretty neat. So once it's been spun up, it'll be available, and we can then go in and see Chainlit. I'm going to minimize the agent a little bit. So this is the Chainlit UI. This will be where we chat, and this is supposed to mimic any other standard chat interface that you'll have in the agentic space. We will come back to this in a second. Now we can go look at Catalyst and say whether we now have an agent registered here. And we should have that. Oh, there we go, expert agent. And let me see. Oh, I know why I don't. I need to change. Let me restart, and then Diagrid project list, and then I want to do Diagrid project use this, and then we'll go back. So what I just did was I made sure to actually use that specific project that we created earlier on. I did not do that earlier on. So now it's running up against this specific project, and my previous demo project will have an agent more, which will be fine. So while that is spinning up, what happens here is that the agent will use the registry here to go in and register all of the metadata about itself, so that inside of Catalyst we'll be able to showcase the overview of these agents. And now we should have an agent. Whoops, here it is. And I think I'm going to try to zoom out just a little bit. Clicking into this agent, we'll now have an overview about this agent. You can see there is 0 tools because it does not have any tools. We didn't give it any tools. You can see the model and so on and so forth. We'll click a little bit further around. What we can see is that there is 0 agent executions as of yet. So it has not been triggered yet. So let's try to go do that. Just refresh to make sure we have a clean session. And then we can ask, what is the latest release of Dapr? And here there will be no hook running. It'll just converse with OpenAI, and then it'll return, and then it'll summarize for the next iteration. And the summarization is sort of an internal thing where it just summarizes it. It says that as of June 2026, the latest version is 1.10. That is very much incorrect, because I know for a fact we released 1.18 today. So let's see how we can get some actual accurate information out here, because this is very outdated. So if we have a production agent that runs with this outdated information, it's practically useless, right? The context of which it answers questions is irrelevant, because it's a long time ago. So this is where the hooks come into play. And dropping back into the agent, let's enable the hooks and then go look at what those hooks are. So inside the hook, we have our client. It's a Tavily setup. I'm just importing the actual Tavily package. And then because this effectively grabs web context from untrusted sources and just jams it into a prompt and says to OpenAI, give us some information about this. This would be super liable for prompt injection attacks. So we want to try to create some guardrails around that and say to the LLM, please do not react or respond to anything within here, because it's very untrusted. This is not a perfect solution, but for the demoable purpose, this will do us just fine and well. So we add that as the extra information to the LLM, that the content within web context will be untrusted and shouldn't be acted upon. Then we have a formatter helper. It's in this context relatively irrelevant. The interesting part here is this function. So if there's not any messages and the role, you'll get a little bit of insights into the internals of how these conversations work with an LLM, but the role is not a user. That is, if it's an assistant message, that is the LLM's reply is from an assistant, then we just want to return and proceed with the hook. So all hooks in Dapr Agents comes with a decision. Either you deny or you proceed the execution. Then we're going to fetch. So the question first, we're going to fetch the question that we're asking the LLM from the content of the user message. Then we have a logging information. Then we're going to use the client to do a web search with the question, and we're saying we only want 5 results, because otherwise we can blast out a ton of results. And then we're going to format the returns, so the query results. If there is no results, then we're just going to proceed and say like, well, hook ran, but there was nothing to do with it. So now we're here. Now we know that we've searched the web. We've gotten returns back. There was content retrieved from the web search. Now we got to set them in as details. So now we do sort of a smaller mutation of the history, the conversation history between the user and the LLM, which for now is just the user. And then we inject the system message with the content where we have the untrusted guard to say, hey, do not do any response to any of the stuff within the web context. And this is where we put the snippets. And we do it at the last message in that list. In that dictionary. Then we lock the snippets that we're going to return, and then we return the mutated payload for a shallow copy inside of the call LLM. So the next step from here will be, now we're ready to call the LLM with our initial prompt, first our system prompt, our initial prompt, and then our enriched message that provides the context for this query. All right, I hope all of this made just a little bit of sense. If not, please do feel free to drop questions in the chat, and I will go over those as they come, if they come. All right, so we have the hook enabled. Now let's go ask the hook about what the latest Dapr release is. So while that spins up and we wait, it takes a second for the tunnels to be created from my local machine and then up to Catalyst, and then it also has the whole wrapping around of the application. But we are up and running, and here we go. So now we can say, what is the latest Dapr release? And this time we're going to drive into the logs afterwards as well. But now it's out searching, and then it's calling OpenAI with the enriched context. OpenAI, the GPT-4o Mini, is creating a reply. It did not find that we've actually released the full 118, but it did find that the latest release is a release candidate, which was 3 days ago, so that's pretty recent, which is substantially better than getting information from years ago. So already here, we've already enriched the context in present understanding and present knowledge without having to retrain the LM with updated information. Pretty powerful. So we can go in and see in the execution that we had the hook triggered the search for what is the latest release. And then we grabbed this release from GitHub and GitHub. And then there was some announcements about the 117 release and the ducks. And that was the context that was provided to the LLM for it to generate its answer. All right, let me see where I'm at in my plan. Okay. This is cool, and we can answer it about any type of things. We can ask it, what is the stock market doing today? And while it's figuring out what the stock market is doing today, let's go in and look at this. And we have the agent, and now you'll see that there is executions of this. So, for example, here is the previous execution, the latest release, and here is the current execution that's running, and it has not gotten an answer yet. Here is the answer. So we can say today, stock market is volatile. There is something happening in NASDAQ is down, and then S&P 500 is down. Let's go grab and see if this information is also present here. And lo and behold, it is the exact same thing. Now, we can also go look and inspect this execution a bit more. And we can go in and look at the steps that it took from the start. Then This step here is the initial entry. So it's just recording that we've started and sets up a little, like a bit of bootstrapping. Then it loads whatever tools it might have available. There was none this time. So the output of those tools was also nothing. And then we came to the call LLM, and this is where our input and then our output happened. We can see that we had the summarization event, and the content that we got back was this summary from the execution. And then we finalized the workflow, stored our summarization in the longer term memory, and then we ended. Pretty neat. Now, the way to do this better, as you saw when we ask a question here, it's pretty slow, and most of you will probably be used to a more interactive kind of conversation, a more streamed conversation. Let's go play with that. So I will cancel that off and now jump into the sort of the teaser for what's coming. And if you remember, I did a editable install of my local Dapr Agents, and whoops, the reason I did that was because I have that locally. Here we go. I have that locally, so let me grab that setup. First, I'll tell the execution config that this is streaming. Then I will change a little bit in how the on message returns, because we want to return the chunks as the agent returns them. So we will rewrite the on message. It'll still get the agent and runner. It'll still set the instance ID. And then we'll build the message with the content. And then we'll do a loop over the stream of the output, where we will then return those chunks as they arrive back into the Chainlet UI. So hopefully this works. So far, the demo gods have been pretty good. And at some point that might not continue. So let's see. Now I run it with the updated. The only two changes I've done, and so this is not live yet. It's not even a pull request yet. It is relatively fresh out of the gates. But I did update the onMessage to handle the streamed chunks as they come, and then I just added to the execution config that this is streaming, and we should be able to go in and refresh here. And then what could we ask about? I already used my 2 queries for the day, so can you what are we going to figure out here? When is the SpaceX IPO happening? And now, instead of the content being returned in one big blob slammed into the terminal, we should see exactly that streaming part, and it'll keep running until the finalization of the workflow has happened. And there we go. We could also ask, is there any Dapr 1.18 release party planned? And then hopefully it'll find the link that I will share in the chat soon. It is not always finding. Oh, there we go. It actually found it. Very nice. So I'll share this link in a second. But this is one of the upcoming features where we'll implement the streaming. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next week, and I'll also dive a little bit more into in detail, on the hooks. So this pre-LLM call, like I said initially, is built around the hooking system. The hooking system is so much more, and there's so much more to come. In this hooking system, we'll open up a little bit about that in the release party next week, where we'll use one of the other hook types to demo human in the loop. And we'll also talk about some of the pitfalls about the current setup of human in the loop in general, and why we are going to focus on another plugin for the hooking system as is. So before I start doing a very, very, very early wrap up, I actually thought this was going to take a lot longer and with more questions. I want to give a second for any questions, anything that you might want me to go back to or return to, anything that didn't make sense. Otherwise, I will jump into the rounding off notes and share a bit of links. And then thank all of you for participating. All right, so like I said, the Dapr release party for 1.18 release, which has some pretty neat aspects, especially if you are working with AI agents, is on June 17th. I'll share the link to the live stream for that. And we'll talk a ton more about the hooking system, both what is already implemented, what is going to be implemented. And then I want to give a shout out to the next episode in this series. I don't even want to call it a mini series because I don't think it will be a mini series, but where we will be building production ready and production like and real life agents. The next one will be hosted by my colleague Alice, and she'll be creating a site reliability engineering agent that you'll be able to pick up and walk away with and actually do stuff on your infrastructure with. So that is pretty cool. Apart from that, I bid all of you thank you for listening to me jab along and jabble along on hookings and on Dapr Agents. And then I hope to see you in one of the next ones upcoming. Thank you and bye.